minutes, but it might go a bit longer. Okay, got it. Live stream, cool. Okay, so it might go a bit longer, but let's just see how we get on. Obviously, just tell me to stop if we run out of time. But I think we should be able to do it in half an hour. But I'm packing lots in to our 30 minutes. So let's see. Right. So first of all, I want to introduce myself, and then I'm going to get you to just tell me who you guys are. I can see we've got a few different people in there. Maybe we can just do that in the chat. It might be easier just to say hi in the chat and stuff. Then. I just want to sort of like give you some context to say, obviously everyone's very excited about AI at the moment, so I'm going to talk about that a little bit. But then I'm going to, that's on the good side, and then on the bad side, I'm going to say there's some quite important questions that we need to ask about AI. And then I'm going to go through some examples of AI systems. And so hopefully, if everything works, I'm going to do 3 live demos, which is crazy. Nobody ever does 3 live demos because it never works. But you never know. Let's see how we get on. I'm going to show you 3 AI systems running live. I've got a drum kit there. I've got a microphone and various other things. And hopefully, that will allow me to show you. Let's see how it goes. And then at the end, I'm going to give you some links to some other AI systems you might want to check out. And then maybe if we've got time, we can have a bit of a discussion at the end. Okay, so let's go for it. Okay. So who am I? I've kind of got 2 hats. So the first hat is what you see in the bottom left there. So that is, I'm actually the program director for an online degree in computer science. So I run a big online degree, and we have something like 5,000 students all over the world, over in 140 countries. And so that's part of my day job is to run that degree. But I also have, my other hat is that I'm very interested in research about AI and creativity. So how do you embed AI technology inside a creative practice, and also other types of general, okay, and also other types of sort of computer music fun that you might have. So I've put some pictures on here. So this picture in the top left, you can see me on the left there. So that was a concert we did in Venezuela a few years ago with composer Max de Wardener and pianist Will Dutter, with a Venezuelan orchestra. I think it was a 110-piece orchestra or something. And my job was to write the code that would process the piano sound live on stage. And I did that in Super Collider, if anyone's interested in that kind of stuff. And it was like process it. I had a sort of really bad polyphonic pitch detector running on the piano, and I was trying to respond to different notes on the piano and do different things. And it was really scary because it was like 600 people auditorium, and I just finished writing the code the night before. So that was a fun gig, but that's how you have to do it. It's good to live on the edge. And then speaking of living on the edge, then the next one in the top right there, you can see me playing drum kit, that drum kit that's behind me actually, with Alex McLean, who's a live coder. So he writes code in real time, and then the code generates music, and you can see the codes kind of projected onto the screen and onto me and him. And I have a click track, and I'm playing drums, and my drums are generating code as well. So that was all kind of fun. And then the final one in the bottom right with the saxophone player there, that's Martin Speak playing the saxophone. And I've collaborated with musicians for many years, like acoustic, real instrument musicians, and tried to work with them to develop AI systems that are kind of interesting and fun. I've worked a lot with Finn Peters as well. He's a fantastic sax player. Yeah, and this gig was broadcast live on the radio, national radio. Apparently, it was the first time on national radio that an AI improviser system was improvised in real time with a human musician. So that was cool. And that same system is the first one I'm going to demo actually, or a later version of that system. So you're going to have a look at that one today. Okay. So that's me. What about you? So I know that it's probably difficult for everyone to sort of put their mics on and stuff like that. And we've got people on the stream as well. So maybe, I guess what I was going to ask you was, what kind of musical experience you have, which instruments you play. So maybe if you're in the chat, if you know the other people that are there, you could just type in the chat, which instruments people play. That would be really interesting. And then if you've had any programming experience, which languages, so which instruments. I'll put that in the chat now. So just tell me which instruments you play in the chat there, anybody who has access to the chat, and then tell me if any languages, if you've done Python, C++, Max, etc. Any of these? All right, thanks, Franco. Just checking who I've got in the audience, basically. So yeah, brilliant. Electronics and singing. Right, you're the perfect person for this talk, Franco, because most of the stuff I'm going to show you works with those instruments. So that's great. And then, experience. Has anybody used any AI? Have you used any AI before, Franco? Used any AI before? For your music making? Well, obviously everybody's interacted with AIs, whether they like it or not. If you use Google or you use any of those, if you use any social media or any of those platforms, you've been interacting with AI for years, but you maybe didn't know it. But what we're going to look at today are AIs that are specifically for music, right? So let's do that. Okay, good to meet you all. Right, and what I want to do is just say that as exciting times for AI. These are sort of English speaking headlines, obviously, and I'm sure you've got lots of coverage, in your press as well, which is, so you got like one of the ones that's popular at the moment is people basically swapping out vocals, right? So they get like David Bowie to sing a Beatles song, or they get a young version of Paul McCartney to sing one of his more recent songs, and he sounds loads better. Sorry, Paul. And all this stuff so that's the timbre transfer on the voice. I'm going to give you a link to that later. And then you've got things like AI's writing music. You've got fake Drake. So a lot of the stuff that's coming out at the moment is around voices and processing voices and making fake voices, which I guess is interesting. But the reason that's all happening at the moment is because for decades, basically for years, companies like NVIDIA, Facebook, Microsoft has spent billions of pounds, billions of dollars, euros on developing voice synthesis technology and voice analysis technology. So all this stuff with fake voice singing is just coming from that. So they've spent all that money, and now the systems are usable. You can just easily adapt them for singing. That's why that's all happening right now, because those voices in the last couple of years have become very realistic. Because if you listen to my voice now, you can see I'm not just talking in a flat monotone like this, like Alexi did not that long ago, right? So what we call it's called prosody, this idea of actually my voice goes up and down all the time, and it's kind of expressive, right? So the thing that's changed in the last 2 years with AI voices is this ability to model expressiveness, and that's why they've suddenly become really realistic. In case you were wondering why it's all in the headlines at the moment, I'm not going to mention ChatGPT, but obviously I'm not. Yes, it can write lyrics, it can do music stuff. It can actually generate. I think it's quite good at ABC notation, which is used by a lot of people who like folk music, traditional singing and guitar music. There's a notation called ABC notation. I think ChatGPT is quite good at that, so that's worth checking out. It's also good at writing code, which can generate music. So if you ask it to write a program that can write you some music, it'll write you the program. But it's not that good at generating music, but it kind of knows some stuff about music theory, so you can ask it questions about music theory. Anyway, so that's the stuff that's happening. But I want to kind of sort of zoom in a bit. So here's my important questions, things to consider when you're looking at an AI system and you're thinking, do I want to use this? What is this a valid thing? So you can say one question is really important, and this is you're going to hear this a lot, right? Because there's all kinds of legal activity going on at the moment. You may have heard of the legal action that's happening against Stable Diffusion, which is the image generator thing. So all the people that own all the images, all the copyright on the images that were used to train it, they're now suing, right? So because they're like, well, you can't just copy my images and put them in your model. So that's the first question, who owns the data? If I make a music generator and I fed it every Beatles song ever, and it generates stuff that sounds like the Beatles, who owns that, right? It's pretty obvious that the Beatles own it, right? Anyway, so moving on. So who controls the system? Okay, so who controls ChatGPT? Do you control it? kind of, you give it some text and it comes back, so you're kind of controlling it. But what if it goes away tomorrow? What if they suddenly switch it off or change it? You don't have much control over the actual engine, right? But you can just interact with it. So that's another question to think about. And more, maybe quite importantly as well, does the system align with how you want to make music, thinking about AI music systems? So when you're making music, if you want to start including AI in what you do, does it fit in with the way you want to work? If you play guitar, does the AI play the guitar for you? Do you want it to? Maybe you enjoy playing the guitar. You don't want an AI to play your guitar, but maybe you want the AI to add a synth line, or I don't know. So it's like there's lots of things the AI could do, and the question is, what do you want it to do, and and does it work in a way that works for you? Okay. So what I want to do now is getting to some demos. And so, as I say, I'm going to try and do 3 demos. And so the first one, now this is, so here's the questions about these systems. Who made it? Well, I made it. So that's the answer to that one. So this is a system which I have been developing for a while. It's kind of on the side. It hasn't been the only thing I've been doing for a few years, but I've certainly worked on it a fair bit. And at the moment, the most recent version of it is we've built it as a VST plugin. So using Juice, if anyone's heard of that. So you can basically get this thing, and it's available. There's a link there. I will provide these slides afterwards if anyone wants to get the links and stuff. But yeah, this is a system which will learn from MIDI data. So you feed it MIDI data and it will improvise with you. So it basically improvises a response to whatever you feed into it. So I was going to do a demo of this one, and let me just run that now. So, okay, so this is the program. So the main sort of details of the interface are really to do with setting up the MIDI stuff, really. So it takes, you can tell it which MIDI channel you want it to read. This is open source and free, by the way. You can tell it which MIDI channel you want it to listen to. And so if you're not, you remember, I'm assuming you're familiar with MIDI, so the idea of like what the format that you use to store musical data that has notes, and how loud the note is, and when the notes happen. And so like if I play on my synthesizer over here, for example, when I play that, it generates MIDI, and the MIDI can be sent over to wherever. But also I've got a MIDI drum kit here, which I'm going to play, and I'll just show you what it does. So let me just point the camera in the right direction and then go and play the drum kit. Okay, can you see that? Yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mute the mic temporarily. I'm going to go over and I'm basically going to start playing the drum kit, and it's going to be improvising along with it. Okay, right. So it does also play in a more regular way. So thank you. So what it was doing, so it wasn't just looping, right? That was not looping. What it was doing is it was really modeling what I was doing. So it was building what we call a statistical model of my playing in real time. So it was listening to me playing, and it was going, oh, okay, if he plays the snare, then most of the time he plays the bass drum next. Or and then also if he plays loud, he plays lots of quiet ones and then a loud one. And it kind of models those patterns in what I'm doing. And it also works with melody. So if I, yeah, what have I got? So let's just, yeah, so, okay, what I've got here, this is Reaper, this is the DAW. I'm assuming that you probably use Logic or Reaper or Ableton Live, these kind of things. So, you know, you kind of class. So this is Reaper. This is one I like to use because it's cheap and it works quite well. Yeah, so let's have a look at Reaper and just see what I've got going on here. So you can see I've now got the same plugin, but kind of embedded in my channel as a sort of a plugin sitting on the channel, right? So let's just see what we got going on. Oh, anyone joining there? Hello, I see we've got a couple of people joining. Welcome, thanks for joining.
Sorry for interrupting. Yeah, the mute was off. Sorry.
No, it's great to have you here. So just to tell you what's going on, I'm just about to demo an AI system learning from some MIDI data. So let's just see how that goes. So I'll play something first. Okay. Okay. Hang on a minute. Right, if you can spot the song, you get bonus points. Whoops. Oh yeah, that's the one. Anyone know the song? Okay, in the chat. Oh, we've got some chat going. Oh yeah. Oh, brilliant. Got Carlos has joined in. Guy with the funny shirt. Nice one, Carlos. Oh yeah, I didn't see it. Gabrielle, hello. Yeah, awesome. Right, yeah. Can anyone name the song? This is a pop quiz. Okay, it's Chick Corea, Spain, right? So it's quite. He plays like electric piano a lot. So I've got a kind of slightly cheesy electric piano sound going. And so we just saw the demo of me playing a drum kit and it learning from the drum kit, but it can also learn from MIDI data. So so that's the input. And now I'm going to enable the model. So it's now learning, it's listening to that MIDI data, which you can see, here. It's listening to this stuff and it's learning from it, and it's spewing stuff back out in the style of what it's learning from. So it's kind of fun. And oops, sorry. Okay, let's turn it off again. Let's find the bit where he does a solo. Yeah. I thought that was a solo. Yeah. Anyway, well, that's it. You get the idea. Anyway, so you can feed it whatever MIDI data you like. It works really well with like quite quantized information. So if you feed it like a sort of house track or something like that, with quite sort of stabby chords, and it's really good at arpeggiating as well, because it kind of models the arpeggiation, but then kind of does a little riffs on it as well. So yeah, so that's the thing. And you heard it with the drums. That wasn't a great demo. I'm sure there's a good bit in here. Oh, here we go. Right. Okay, right. So let me just do this one more time. So this is the sort of solo part of the thing. So I'm just going to loop that. So this is the original version, which is kind of cool. Now if I turn on the modeling, it's now learning and sort of learning that solo and kind of jamming in the style of that solo with okay, it's so in theory. Oh, it died. Okay, right. first demo death. That's okay, right? So that's two examples of AI systems basically improvising. Two examples of the same AI system improvising with firstly a solo from a sort of Chick Corea. Someone's basically transcribed Chick Corea's solo into MIDI, and I fed the MIDI into the AI. The AI built a model of it, and then was able to spew stuff back out that's similar. Now, remember my important questions. Let me go back to those. Let's think about those questions. Who owns the data? Well, okay, in the first example, I was playing the drums into it, right? I was playing drums, and so the only stuff it knew about was the drums that I just played in. So it's all my data, and I've got complete control over the data, and I'm controlling the system because I made it, firstly, but also, you know, it's not connecting to the internet. There's no big AI thing and the internet that it's connecting to. It's all like running on your machine. And also, you know, does it align with how you want to make music? Well, you heard the drum solo part. So yeah, I mean, I find it really good fun. It's great fun. It aligns. I quite like that kind of free jazz style drumming. So it works really well with that, but you can also play, you know, more regular beats in and that'll work too. But for me, it aligns with how I want to do stuff. So that's kind of why it's like that, because I designed it like that. Okay. I'm going to move on. I should just see if there's any questions actually at this point, because you've seen your first AI system now. So I just wondering, is anyone, feel free to ask any questions in the chat. I've got the chat up. If you have any questions, I'll keep that up so I can keep an eye on it. Right. Okay. So next system, and if any questions pop up, I'll stop and answer them. Okay. Next system is called, what is it called? Well, it's DDSP is the technology behind it, and DDSP, without wanting to go too deeply into it, is essentially a way of training a neural network to model some sort of signal processing thing, right? So that's a bit of a vague description, but essentially, I mean, it stands for differentiable digital signal processing. And what that means is it's as if the neural network has a bunch of like effects units. So if you play the guitar, if you're familiar with the guitar or any, you know, electronic music production, then the idea that you chain together effects units, right? And so what DDSP is doing is it's allowing you to build a neural network which is like a bunch of effects units all stuck together, and the trick is it can then learn how to set the settings on those effects units, right? So if you've got like a delay unit in there, or a phaser or whatever you've got in there, it can learn by example like how to program those effects to achieve a certain thing. And the sort of classic, and this was created by the Google Magenta Lab, which is a really amazing team of people that they're kind of in a creative AI lab connected to Google, and they've been at the forefront of a lot of AI music tech, especially. And what I like about it is that it's very focused on musicians. It's less focused on like trying to replace musicians and more about like giving you tools that you can work with. So this is an example of that. And this again is a plugin. This is freely available plugin. You can download it and run it in your DAW, just like the last system. And yeah, let's just get to the demo. So what it does is timbre transfer, and that is essentially the idea that you can play one instrument in and another instrument comes out the other end. So let's just listen to it and then you can make your own opinions about it, I think. So let's save that. And right. Okay. Just gonna put my headphones on so I can hear what's going on. Okay, so we can do this. Yeah, don't think you can hear that. But let's just go in and see what's going on. Okay, here we go. Right, my voice is very loud, so I'm going to mute my mic so you can't hear the mic. I'm going to put the mic on again so you can kind of hear a bit more of what I'm doing. Do I sound like bassoon. Okay, have a bit of fun there. So what it's doing is it's transferring my voice onto a bassoon or something else, a trumpet. Okay, here's the trumpet model. Oh, you can hear a trumpety sound coming through now. This one's obviously being a trumpet, it's quite comedy. So yeah, so hopefully you can see that I can control the trumpet quite well based on my voice. So but it's quite responsive. So yeah, okay, right. So let me just mute it for a minute. Okay, so that's timbre transfer with a trumpet and a bassoon and a live vocal signal. You can I took my guitar away, but you can also play guitar into it. Any live feed you can feed in, and yeah, if I've got some other sound here, which is Finn Peters, the saxophone player and flautist and composer I've worked with a lot. This is a recording of him playing Albert Ayler's Ghosts. If you're into your jazz, free jazz, you may have heard of that. But let's have a listen. Oh, here's the original. Okay. And then he's playing in quite a kind of cool way. And then let's transfer it over. What about flute? Anyway, you get the idea. Okay, so that is system number 2, and so that's timbre transfer, and again let's maybe ask those questions again with that one, because that's interesting. Okay, so who owns the data? Well, this was interesting because in order for that to work, they had to give it a data set so it's been trained with a data set, but the data set it's trained on is recordings of people playing trumpet or whatever instrument I transfer to. So recordings of trumpet, recordings of yeah, it's pretty funny, isn't it, Essen? Yeah. Write down the name of the app demonstration you did before. Oh yeah, sorry, that's AI. So I'll put the link in. Yeah, let me do it at the end. I'll give you all the links so you can check them out. Okay, so yeah, so in terms of the DDSP thing, who owns the data? Well, they actually provide a system where you can train it on your own data, so you can record yourself playing an instrument and you can train it on that, and then there's no other data in there, so you completely own it and you've controlled how it's done. So I think that ethically, and in terms of what I'm talking about here, I feel that that's quite good. Who controls the system? Well, the code is originally written by these guys, Google Magenta team, but it's open source, so you can access all of the code. And I was running the code live on my machine. I wasn't using their machine to run it on or anything like that. And you can when you train it, you can use the Google Colab system to train it. Okay, and does it align with how you want to make music? Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, the examples we heard there were quite crazy, but if you work with it, you can get it to actually produce quite realistic results. So you can see it's a very kind of lively thing. So compared to like a synth, like one of these ones, on a synth you press a note and it isn't as dynamic, it doesn't feel very dynamic. So the thing with DDSP is it's a very precise model. It's modeling pitch and amplitude very precisely, so it's a much more dynamic feeling kind of instrument. So if you can feed it a nice rich data source and learn how to control it, it's actually you can get some really seriously good results. Okay, so that's the second example. Right, moving on. Okay, how are we doing for time? I've got about 5-10 minutes left. So the next system I wanted to show you is like, now I'm going to do a sort of hybrid system. So these are some more AI systems which have come out recently. So DMux is created by Facebook Research. Facebook, but it's okay. So what does DMux do? This is actually, I don't know what, I'd be interested on your thoughts of why Facebook created this. But anyway, I'll tell you what it does. It does a thing called source separation. So what does source separation mean? Probably easiest to demonstrate with an example. So if I go to, and this one is a bit tricksy to use because it runs in the terminal, but let's see what we got. So I've got a track like this. Oh, I'm just going to tell it to play out of the right sound card so you can hear it. Yeah, okay, that should do it. And then if I just, right, so I've got, okay, right, bit of disco. So what can I do with that? Well, let me just, sorry about the command line stuff, but basically this is basically a tool, a command line tool at the moment, but there are some graphic interfaces on it, but the main use is on the command line. So what you can do is you can run a command like this. So I just type in demux and then the name of the file I want to source separate. So demux relates to demuxing, which is the idea of breaking a media file into its parts. So like demuxing a video file might give you the video and the audio separately, for example. So this is demuxing an audio file which has got the drums, the bass, the singing, and the kind of violins and things. So I run it on there. It processes for a while, and eventually it's done, and let's see what it came out with. So this is what it produced. So there's the it basically split my file into 4 parts. So let's have a listen to them. I think I might have done this, I've done one that I prepared earlier just to make sure it worked. So recent projects, where are we? Oh no, let's just create a new one. Save that. Okay, so let's just pop these files into here. Yeah, okay. So what's it done? Right, so this is what it created. Okay. Oh, let's loop it, sorry. He's the greatest dancer. Okay. Hey, not bad, eh? So, and that's free and open source. Now, you probably, if you're familiar with, things like Isotope RX10 or whatever they're on now, there are commercial tools available that do this already, but this is what you call a state-of-the-art kind of tool. So actually, and it's being released as source code, so it takes a while for the commercial tools to actually even catch up with this stuff. So I would say this is as good as you're going to get in a commercial tool, or possibly better. And it uses the latest technology. It uses the same technology, weirdly, as ChatGPT. It uses transformer neural networks, interestingly. Anyway, so that's a state-of-the-art source separation algorithm. Right, so I said it was a hybrid example, you may remember. So that was the first step, is demuxing into demuxing. And I should also say that this is one of the technologies, if you've, for the fake Drake and the replacing David Bowie singing Nirvana and all that stuff that we've been seeing recently, and they're almost definitely using this to demux it. So the first step is to pull out the vocal from the from the original track, and then you swap out the vocal for the remodeled one. Anyway, so this is one of the tools that those people are using for that stuff. So what's the other tool? Well, the other tool is Spotify. So I'm going for the big scary companies now, Facebook and Spotify, working together to do some fun stuff with AI and audio. We're going to ask the important questions again in a minute. Okay, so what does Neural Note do? Well, so this this is neural note. I've got it running, I think. Yeah. So neural note is essentially a audio to MIDI converter. So what it does is it takes your audio and tries to extract the notes. And it works with polyphonic data. So remember earlier I was saying when I was on stage in Venezuela and I had a really bad polyphonic pitch, I was running this pitch extractor on the piano. Like I had like this beautiful piano with like mics on it, but I could not, there wasn't a good enough algorithm back then to do this. So I was using a bad one. But now this is a new algorithm for sort of extracting polyphonic pitch. This is not a great, actually the greatest answer is not a brilliant choice for this. But anyway, let's just see what it does. So we basically drop the file into it, and then you see it's essentially taken that audio file, which is the vocals, and it's converted it into MIDI. So then what we can do is we can drag that back onto, actually let's make a new track. Yeah. So that's my vocal. I don't know if it lines up properly. It looks like it might do. Yeah, okay. There's a bit of weird stuff with timing, but okay. Right. Oh, that's the drums. Let's put a synth. Let's make a synth play the vocals. How about DSE, DSP synth? Why not, right? Okay. Oh, brilliant, is it? Okay, three. I said it was going to be. Okay, let's keep going. Okay. Yeah, the timing's a bit off, but okay. But yeah, and I'm not. I don't know. I think you can basically tell it. If you tell it the correct tempo of the track you're importing it into. Sorry, if you tell it the correct tempo of the track you're importing into it, it will line up properly. But anyway, so that's. Yeah, that's just showing you there wasn't a great synth I used to do that. If I get rid of this crazy synth and swap it out for something like Surge, for example. So this is an open source free synth, but it's a really good one. And if I just put some nice sound on there, I don't know, where are we? Keys. Why not an organ? Yeah, let's play the vocals with an organ. Okay. Anyway, so the point is that it's essentially, it will do polyphonic pitch transcription of any signal. And combined with the demuxer, so you can take a track, especially it's particularly good at piano. I should have used an example of, but you can load a piece of music that has piano and vocals and everything. You can use demux to pull out the piano. You can drop the piano into here and then extract the notes from the piano and put them straight into your DAW, and then you can work from there. Okay, so that's basically, I just wanted to show you how you can kind of combine different systems to achieve something. And these are all kind of quite state-of-the-art type systems. I think Spotify released the pitch extractor model last year. Demux, they keep releasing new versions of Demux. This one is from this year. So this is very recent stuff. Okay. And I guess, those are the three systems. So let's ask the questions again. So in thinking of those systems, like who owns the data? Well, so I think Demux is trained on a standard data set of music. So in order to train it, I think they have lots of examples of like piece of music with all the parts in, and then what the output should be, which is the separate parts. So I think it's an open data set. So I think it's not too bad on the data front. At least they publish what the data set is, so you know what data went into it. Then who controls the system? Well, again, you've got a fair amount of control over it, and it's a bit, it kind of downloads the model and does the stuff. It's not totally clear, maybe, but. Yeah, and does it work with how you want to make music? Well, this is the interesting question. So that workflow there is much more of a sort of a copyright sort of it's copyright infringing kind of workflow, right? Because it's almost encouraging you to take other people's music and extract notes from it and then use them in yours. So it's like so I can take an Ed Sheeran track and I can extract all the notes and I can make my own version of it very easily with this workflow. I don't even have to listen and transcribe it myself. It just transcribes it for me. And then I can throw Ed Sheeran into my other system and remodel him and stuff like that, right? So it's kind of it's the plagiarist's kind of workflow, if you like. But that's just the question is, is that how you want to work? There's lots of fun stuff on the internet where people make pastiches of other people's work and whatever, right? So it's up to you to decide, really. Okay, so that's the 3 systems. So I'm doing more or less running to the end of time now. So the other systems I wanted to mention are, I think it was this year, the Audio Programmer Network. So the Audio Programmer is a network of people who work on audio development, audio programming, and actually one of them was a graduate. The person that set it up, Josh Hodges, was a graduate of Goldsmiths, where I work, and I actually supervised his final year project. So it was really great to see him end up building this whole professional network of audio programmers. But this year they ran a competition, and the competition was to make a sort of neural network powered plugin, basically, and you won some money if you got the best one. And they're all open source, and they all have an ethical statement with them as well, which is great. So you can check that link out. I will give you the slides afterwards, so you can get all these links. Then Magenta Studio. So we saw DDSP from Magenta, but they've got a bunch of other tools as well that process MIDI in different ways. So that's some interesting stuff. Although the data sets on those are a little bit dubious. It's not exactly clear where all the data's come from, which is interesting. And then there's another one. Okay, so going to the other end of the spectrum of data problems, you got Ava.ai, and this thing, you can just press a button and it will compose a complete piece of music. And so it takes all the fun out of music. Basically, it's like, okay, an AI can just do my job for me. For me, not so sure. I mean, it makes decent sounding music, but how much control, the important questions are going to be difficult to answer with that system, I would say. And the final one, because it's trendy and everyone's excited about it, is this Sovit's SVC voice transfer. So what is it? I think, so this is, the YouTube link is a tutorial on how to use it. The top link is the original source code for it on GitHub. And GitHub, if you don't know, is a big repository of code, and a lot of people who do research, they publish their code on GitHub and make it available, and lots of plugins are on there as well. Okay, so this is the thing that lets you build a model of, so you can basically take all of David Bowie's songs, for example. You can use DMux to extract all of his vocals, and then you can feed all of those vocals into a model. You can train it, and then you can then you can take any song you like Nirvana or something, and you can remove the vocal from Nirvana and replace it with David Bowie singing the same song but with his voice. Okay, so that's what that does. So that's why people are excited about it, because you can basically get dead musicians and get them to sing songs for you, which is weird, but maybe interesting and entertaining. I don't know. So those are some other interesting things that you can check out afterwards. So just to summarize, okay, so we talked about who I am, and we sort of had a bit of feedback on who you are and what you're up to. I talked about the fact that it's an exciting time for AI and music, and then I kept coming back to these important questions. Who owns the data? Who controls the system? Does it do stuff that you want it to do? Does it fit with your creative flow as a musician? Okay, and I showed you 3 systems, which so the first one was this AI improviser, where I demonstrated with the drumming and also with the Chick Corea solo, and it learns very quickly from a bit of data, and then it can regenerate in that style. We looked at timbre transfer, the idea of taking your timbre of one instrument and swapping it for the timbre of another instrument, which is the DDSP system. And then we saw a hybrid example at the end, where we were kind of extracting sources from music and swapping them out and resynthesizing them and doing stuff like that. And we just saw some examples of other systems. So that is it, I think. That's my last slide. So I guess at this point I've sort of put discussion down. So I'm happy to just discuss this, answer any questions, do whatever you want for the next, until 11 o'clock or whatever. So yeah, over to you guys. Okay, I've got a question there. Okay. Missed the beginning of the presentation. Might have been mentioned, but I remember playing around with Rebecca Feebrink's Wekinator many years ago. Wonder if you've collaborated. Oh yeah, great question. Yeah. So Rebecca Feebrink's Wekinator is a neural network powered thing that basically allows you to map from one input to another input. So and things like camera feeds. So you might have your video camera input, and it detects things in the video feed, and then you can map that to control something like a big synthesizer and stuff like that. And so yes, it's a really great system. Rebecca Feebrink originally was at Goldsmiths, now at University of the Arts London, and yeah, I have worked on a project called Mimic with Rebecca, and which was developing. Basically, in that project they redeveloped Wekinator into something that runs on the web page. So I'll give you a link to that, which is the Mimic. Let me just get the. Okay, I'll give you a link for that one in the chat. This is the Mimic project. So yeah, we re-implemented Wekinator as a web-based thing. So you don't have to install anything. You can just basically go onto this website, and you can use your camera, webcam, and whatever, and yeah. So check that out. That's a good link there. So yeah, good comment. Thanks. Any other questions?
Hello. I think maybe it would be better for me to type the question instead of talking, just in case. Oh no, okay, it's good. Okay, there's no feedback. So first of all, thanks a lot. Super interesting, very exciting times to kind of see the AI kind of moving into the mainstream, and kind of see like everyone, like the artists, the audience, all of us, like kind of like trying to adapt to that. So I had two questions. The first one is, yeah, so that song, that fake song of Drake feat The Weeknd, that was like a very funny kind of like first like mainstream AI song. It was kind of interesting to see the reactions to that. So for example, I'm pretty sure that you saw the tweet by Grimes asking her fans to make like an AI song with her voice, and that she will be willing to like share royalties with that. So I'm kind of wondering, what are your thoughts on how both the artists and the audience are going to kind of like adapt to these new kind of opportunities?
Yeah, wow. So yeah, it's an interesting, isn't it? Because I think Grimes has got a lot of money, so doesn't really care what happens. It's like you're still going to have a Mercedes in the garage. If a few people copy your voice. But I think that it's more worrying for people who make their living out of being a backing vocalist or something like that, right? So I think that whilst you've got these high-profile musicians who are, they're kind of. It's interesting their take on it. It's like, no, you take it down, or no, use it, but give me some. We'll share the money, kind of thing. That's interesting. But yeah, what's the future of it? Well, I guess I think what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to do things like this, where I sort of like talk to musicians and people who work in this industry, and show them some of the tools, and just show, it's not just deep fake, it's not just ChatGPT and deep fake stuff. That's the stuff that gets in the headlines. But there's also loads of really kind of interesting and creative tools using, high tech AI stuff, but with a different focus. And so I guess my approach is to get people to use those tools and show them how to use them, and hopefully that makes for a richer, more diverse use of AI, not just swapping out David Bowie for Drake or whatever it is. So yeah, and the deep fake stuff's fun, but I think it's kind of a fad, because it'd be like, imagine it, after you've heard 10 songs, 10 Beatles songs sung by whichever dead people you want, it's like, okay, yeah, it's that again. It's going to get boring, right? So I'm more interested in people coming up with new ways of using the technology, interesting new things which you couldn't do before. I mean, ultimately, you could get a David Bowie impersonator, a real person, to come and sing like David Bowie over a Beatles track. So yeah, we can do it with a computer now, but it's not really adding anything new. It's not, for me, it's not that interesting. So I'm much more interested in DDSP because I can turn my voice into a trumpet, or I'm interested in, AI, improvising with an AI because I'm going to explore domains which I didn't expect to get to. It's going to challenge me in a different way and all this stuff. So I'm interested in new possibilities rather than these kind of gimmicks. Okay, that's my angle.
No, awesome. I completely agree with that mentality of trying to use AI as like a collaborator with yourself in order to like increase your creativity. I have another question, which is that, so it might just be my opinion, but it seems like the kind of state of the art of electronic music for the last 20 or 30 years, or maybe ever since electronic music existed, has been about trying to like create the most kind of like insane, unhuman kind of like sounds or textures possible. Right. So I'm just kind of wondering, like, in a world where in the near future, where like in theory, anyone is able to create any kind of possible texture, do you think that there is going to be an increase in the perceived value of like physically playing an instrument?
Well, yeah, because I mean, in a way, with Spotify and Apple Music and everything, the value of recorded music, if you like, has kind of gone down to zero for most people who make it, right? So already you make money as a musician by probably, depending what you do, right? But in the future, it's going to be, live performance with an instrument is the only thing that, because again, you could make a robot that plays a guitar, right? But who's going to go and, how many of those do you want to see? I don't know, right? Maybe two.
At least one.
Yeah, maybe one. So that's the question, right? So I think, I think absolutely that the value of live performance and that human experience is going to be really rich. Here's another thing to think about when you were talking about, crazy electronic music, right? So if you think about something like, if you think Aphex Twin's kind of crazy, or Square Pusher, or I don't know, frankly, there hasn't been anything more crazy than that, in my opinion, since, and that was from the 90s and early 2000s. So in my opinion, like Go Plastic, the record by Square Pusher, there's nothing crazier than that. It's the level of detail in the programming is so extreme. I don't think anyone's matched it. There's no DSP processing that anyone's done since that is as detailed in its programming. And there's a bit contentious, I know. But so if you get an AI to go to try and imagine you trained an AI to make the craziest, most detailed, complicated electronic music it can do. Well, the problem is at some point it's just going to sound like noise to you because it's going to be so fast. A human doesn't have the capability to understand that level of detail. So I think it's quite an interesting idea. Like, if AIs write music for AIs, how we might not even understand that music, because they can run faster than us and they can listen to more frequencies and everything else, right? I don't know what you think about that, but
yeah, I thought of like something even crazier, which is like, imagine if at some point in the future, like we're able to like somehow augment our like hearing capabilities in order to experience music that is even faster or has like a wider range of pitch than what is like naturally humanly possible.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah, so you put like extra, perceptual capabilities, and because ultimately, because some like prog rock and then IDM, they're pushing for more and more data flow. It's like rich. It's all about data, isn't it? It's like, I'm going to send you as much data as I can to the point where you can't understand it anymore. And so, like with AI, we can push beyond that. Yeah. So we might need new ears, right, and new brains probably as well. Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions? All right. Okay. Just check the chat. Nothing's appeared there. Okay, all done. Right. So, so in that case, so I'm gonna wrap up, and I'll just say thanks very much for inviting me to give this talk. It's always good to speak to people who are actually musicians who work on, who are working on this stuff and really know the domain, And so, yeah, it's been great to speak to you today. I hope that it has been interesting, and I will provide the links in the slides. I'll give you the PDF of the slides, and you can find all the links for all the things that I showed you. And I'll get Alejandra to sort of send that around. Okay, cool. All right then. I don't know if anyone's going to shut it down, but I'll just wait here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was amazing.
See ya.